I thank the gentleman from Florida for organizing this special order, for his leadership, for his constitutional convictions, and the opportunity to address you tonight, Mr. Speaker, here on the floor of the House of Representatives. I'm listening to this dialogue that's taking place here on the floor, and this thought occurred to me that several years ago, our borders are so open and our borders are so porous. And we have a president who has refused to enforce the law. In fact, he sent a message to his executive branch: if you're determined to enforce the law and you're a member of the Border Patrol, you better find another job. I mean, that came out of the president and his leadership team all the way on down to our Border Patrol agents. I've been down to the border a good number of times, and I've watched as people come across the border in broad daylight, float across there in a raft to get unloaded, stand there on the grass on our side of the river, and wait for the Border Patrol to come down with a welcome wagon and say, well, would you like to apply for asylum? And by the way, that one of them was a pregnant lady. And so I'm sure by now she has her asylum, or at least that baby is an American citizen. Our borders are so porous that in order to illustrate how bad they were, we had James O'Keefe that went down and put on a Osama bin Laden mask and walked across the border. Nobody bothered him. There was another individual that thought, I'll make a bigger show of it. I'll hire a mariachi band, and he rode a circus elephant across the Rio Grande River. That's how bad our border is. Now, here's how bad our law and our Constitution are. The mariachi band was serenading the Supreme Court today, Mr. Speaker, to try to convince them that they ought to see the Supreme Court rewrite law that Congress has written. It's been signed by a previous president, and every president since then has taken the oath to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. The constitutional balance that we have has seen a Supreme Court rewrite Obamacare, so now they have the audacity to rewrite the law, and they're the ones that are to be deciding today, with 8 justices, sadly not 9, as to whether or not the President of the United States can do what the Supreme Court did. In other words, rewrite the law. The President of the United States 22 times, as the previous Speaker, Mr. Bratz, said, told America he doesn't have the constitutional authority to grant the amnesty, the executive amnesty that he did, whether it be DACA or whether it be DAPA. But then after he deliberated for a while, he checked his conscience. That didn't bother him. We shouldn't be amazed at that, Mr. Speaker. He already knew the Constitution. He lectured it to us. But what he checked was his politics. And his question was, can he get away with it? Is there an enforcement capacity that could stop him? Well, he hadn't met yet Judge Hainan in Texas, whom, if these justices in the Supreme Court deadlock 4-4, the President's executive amnesty, is at least for DAPA, is going to be stalled for the duration of his administration. And so this prosecutorial discretion argument before the court today that the Obama administration very well knew was the center of this case, and that prosecutorial discretion can only be conferred on an individual basis only. That was the testimony of Janet Napolitano, and in the first Morton memo document, there were multiple references to an individual basis only. Her testimony was an individual basis only, but even the first document set out 4 categories, groups of people whom the law would be waived for. And that's what we're talking about here. Who writes the law? If the president writes the law, how could we write one that would restrain this president that's out of line? Let's preserve our Constitution, and let's look forward to an appointment to the Supreme Court that actually means it when they take their oath, as we do ours. Yield back to the gentleman from Florida.